This is VOA News by remote. I'm Tommy McNeil. Thousands of activists across dozens of U.S. Cities have broken curfews, set fires, and looting, burning, and much more in response to protests, some violent, in the wake of the death of a black man while in police custody. Buildings and vehicles have been set ablaze. Some looting again continues, and at least one person has died. And protest-related shootings. In the nation's capital, Washington, D.C., there's continued carnage as well. These protests taking place around the country were sparked by the death of George Floyd, the black man detained by Minneapolis police officers who he died in their custody. Video of the incident shows now fired police officer Derek Chauvin resting his knee on Floyd's neck while Floyd was handcuffed on the ground, complaining that he could not breathe. The video, which lasts about 8 minutes, shows onlookers pleading for Chauvin to remove his knee and for someone to render aid to Floyd, who became visibly unresponsive. Floyd was later pronounced dead, and the actions of the police officers at the scene were denounced by many of the nation's leaders, law enforcement community, and American public. While Chauvin has been charged with murder and 3 additional officers fired, there's been continued civil unrest. Hundreds of people converged on the White House and marched along the National Mall in protest. Protesters dragged away barricades and used concrete for projectiles. President Trump said Saturday the military could deploy troops to the protest epicenter, Minneapolis, very quickly. A U.S. official speaking on condition of anonymity told Reuters that military had ordered some active duty Army military police officers to be prepared to deploy if local authorities requested their help. There have been targeted attacks or arrest of network reporters working for organizations like CNN and Fox News as well. This is VOA News. Globally, there have been approximately 370,000 deaths attributed to COVID-19, nearly 104,000 in the United States. The number of infections globally is well above 6 million, more than 1.7 million in the U.S. Pope Francis Saturday urged politicians to divert funds spent on weapons to research, which will help prevent another pandemic. Speaking as he led the largest gathering in the Vatican in nearly 3 months, he prayed the rosary in the Vatican gardens as tens of thousands of people and about 50 Catholic shrines around the world joined in. A large screen in the garden showed video links with about 25 locations, media, and more as he prayed. Among those who prayed were Italian doctors, nurses, and ambulance drivers, as well as people who recovered from the new coronavirus or lost family members. A British infectious diseases expert and a member of the British government scientific advisory group says that the loosening of lockdown measures in England is dangerous. Professor John Edmonds, a member of Britain's Scientific Advisory Group for Emergencies Committee, expressed concern over the country's ability to contain the spread of the virus as the lockdown eases. He said the most important issue was a high number of cases still being reported. He cited 8,000 new infections per day in England alone. Monday in England, groups of up to 6 people from different households will be allowed to meet outside in parks or private gardens as long as they maintain social distancing. The Islamic State has claimed responsibility for a bombing which killed 2 employees of an Afghan television station and wounded 7 other people in Kabul. A Taliban spokesman denied involvement in the attack on his Twitter account. And for the first time in 9 years, a U.S. rocket has lifted off, carrying American astronauts to the International Space Station Saturday afternoon. A SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket with the Dragon capsule aboard carried astronauts Douglas Hurley and Bob Behnke into orbit from launch at the Kennedy Space Center. U.S. President Trump, as well as Vice President Mike Pence, watched the launch. Afterward, the president said that he was amazed at the power of the SpaceX rocket. The launch is a cooperative effort between NASA and SpaceX, and it is the first commercial launch to carry U.S. astronauts into space. Again, for the first time in 9 years, a U.S. rocket has lifted off carrying American astronauts to the International Space Station. More at voanews.com. Via remote, I'm Tommy McNeil, VOA News.